In the epic tale of Mahabharata, there was a time called Kurukshetra, where a battle was fought between the righteous and the evil. The Pandavas and the Kauravas fought against each other. And the chief of Kaurav army, Dronacharya, decided to end the battle with an epic plan. He decided to kidnap the chief of Pandav army, their king Yudhishthir. And therefore, he decided to come up with one of the most toughest battle formations called as the Chakravyuh. And on the given day, the Chakravyuh would have played well until one young man decided to play spoilsport. His name was Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu took the onus of entering the battlefield and breaking the Chakravyuh. And he almost did that. He entered the Chakravyuh with a lot of glory, defeating one warrior after the other until he was finally trapped by the Kaurav army and killed. Now, why did this happen? It happened because Abhimanyu only knew how to enter the Chakravyuh and to perhaps break it, but he didn't have a clue of how to return safely from the Chakravyuh. Now, why am I sharing this story with you? Because the point I'm trying to make here is not in this particular episode of the battle. It dates back many, many years than that. It was when Abhimanyu was inside his mother's womb, Subhadra. And it was a time when Subhadra spoke to her brother, trying to cajole him, convince him. And in fact, she begged him to narrate to her the entire secret of entering and coming out of the Chakravyuh safely. And this was a time when Abhimanyu was inside his mother's womb. So when Krishna started narrating the story of Chakravyuh, Subhadra listened to him with rapt attention, getting every small detail as possible. And inside of her, the unborn child, Abhimanyu, was listening to every piece of information. But there came a twist. When Krishna finished narrating how to enter the Chakravyuh, Subhadra fell asleep. And with her, the child within her also went to sleep. Because of which Abhimanyu, when he grew up, only had the secret of entering the Chakravyuh, but not breaking it. Alas, only if Subhadra had listened to the entire story. Welcome to all of you. The reason I narrated this story is to make a very pertinent point, which is applicable in every part of our life, whether it is personal, professional, or any other form. The importance of listening. So how well do you listen? Now, I know we live in a world where we are constantly bombarded with a lot of information. So listening to all of that may not be necessary, but it's important to listen nonetheless. So I'm going to share with you some principles here, which will help you become a better listener. So here they are. Number one, always keep a tab of the talk to listen ratio. Now, what is the talk to listen ratio? In general, when we grow up as a kid, we are always taught to speak. In fact, there is elocution competition, debate, and whatnot. But have you ever heard of a listening competition? There isn't one, because we are constantly taught to speak, but rarely taught to listen. And that's why it's important that we are conscious when it comes to listening. So in the talk to listen ratio, you listen 60% of the time and you speak only 40% of the time. Now, what happens because of that? You consciously listen more and talk less. And therefore, you receive a lot of information, and whatever response you deliver is well thought about. So remember the talk to listen ratio. Speak only 40% of the times and try to listen 60% of the times. Number two. Now, although it is important to listen, it is even more important that you showcase, you exhibit to the other person that you are listening. How do you do that? For example, as we are talking to each other, one of the ways you could tell the other person that you're listening is by making smaller sounds, which we call as verbal cues. For example, you might do, uh-huh, mm-hmm, okay, mm-hmm. So just by making these sounds, you let the other person know that you're listening to him or her. Now, why is this important? Because listening by principle indicates that you respect the other person, what he or she is saying. You might completely disagree with what he or she is saying, but by making these verbal cues, you're indicating that I'm with you. I know where you're coming from. I understand. It shows a lot of empathy and respect. So use verbal cues very effectively. Number three is when you are listening, it's important to first listen to your own self before you start listening to someone else. Now, what does that really mean? Let's say you're walking into an important client meeting. Before you enter the client meeting, take some time only with your own self. Ask yourself, what are you feeling right now? Listen to your own inner mind. It's saying something. Now, by tuning into your own self, you will be in a much better position to listen to the other person. Because if you can't listen to your own self, there is a very less possibility that you're going to listen to other people as well. So first, listen to yourself before you start listening to the other party. It is kind of a mental preparation that you do before you enter an important conversation. So listen to your own self. And last but not the least, practice a little bit of silence. Tough one, isn't it? Especially in a world where silence is absolutely underplayed. Everyone wants to speak and make an impression. But the real essence of listening well is to maintain some sort of silence within yourself. Now, there are different ways you can do that. Some people like to spend time by the nature. Some people meditate. But if you can't do that, at least 10 to 15 minutes of just silence, doing nothing, saying nothing, not a phone call, and not even looking at your phone for that matter, can make a huge difference because you're now able to reflect upon your own thoughts. So practice silence. 10 to 15 minutes of silence can make a world of difference. So here are the 4 principles again. The first principle is the talk to listen ratio. 40% talking and 60% listening. Secondly, verbal cues. Let the other person know that you're listening. Sounds like, make a huge difference. Number 3, listen to yourself first before you start listening to someone else. Tune into your own thoughts. And number 4 is practice conscious silence. 10 to 15 minutes of silence, and you've done a great job for yourself to practice active listening. Now remember, God has given us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Let's understand the signal and accordingly practice more of listening. You will become a better communicator, a better father, a better friend, a better sister, a better mother, and a better everything if you listen to people around you. So let's hope that we do not commit the mistake that Subhadra did. Let's not go to sleep. Let's keep our eyes and ears open so that we listen to every minute detail that's around us. I hope you're listening to yourself. Thank you very much.